first of all, you're probably watching this video because you're looking for alternative means to formulate your own feed. For those of us that don't know much about poultry, feed represents about 60 to 70% of the cost of production, and it is getting very expensive, especially in my country, my country, Zambia. For example, a 50 kg bag of broiler starter costs around $15. Now, this can be very discouraging if you're looking to venture into poultry farming or you're looking to maximize your profits. Hello viewer, my name is Lotson Banda and I'm a veterinarian specialized in poultry. In this video segment, I'm going to teach you how you can formulate your own poultry feed. However, despite the title of this video, I have to mention that there is no such thing as a cheap poultry feed, especially in business, because a cheap feed is going to can be toxic to your birds. A cheap feed can bring about infection to your birds, and a cheap feed can simply kill your flock because it might not contain the nutrients that are needed by your birds to have good meat quality, as well as have good quality and quantity of eggs. But this video is going to help you to use the ingredients or the raw materials that are cheap and readily available to you so that you can formulate feed that is going to be nutritious for your animals. Now, first things first, I'm going to give you a list of those main ingredients that you need to formulate your own feed. Of these main ingredients, you only need to choose one, because if you put 2, 3, they are simply the same because the content is the same. You only need one main ingredient as a source of energy and protein. The first main ingredient that I'm going to give you is maize or corn. Okay, now corn can be either grade 2, can be grade 3, or grade 4, and so on and so forth. Now, the higher the number of the grade, the poorer the quality. In most poultry production, they use grade 2 or grade 3 will be okay. The grading is simply dependent upon the size of the kernels and as well as the amount of foreign particles that are contained in the maize. The maize that you choose has to be of good quality. You can either choose grade 2 or grade 3. What's important is that it shouldn't contain mycotoxins. Also, ensure that the maize that you choose is well dried. You don't need the maize that has a lot of moisture. Also, it shouldn't be too dried. If it's too dried or it has been stored for a very long period of time, just expect that it has toxins in it. The most common, which is aflatoxins. Now, if you don't want this, or you have to prevent this, they usually use organic acids. These organic acids can be used, can be put in the maize to reduce the growth of mold. Okay, if you don't have maize readily available to you, you can as well use wheat. Now, wheat is also a very good source of protein and energy, although it contains less protein as compared to maize. One other important factor to mention here is that wheat, if you feed chicks more than 30% of wheat, or if the diet contains more than 30% of wheat, it can lead to problems, because wheat contain what is known as pentosans. Now, these substances reduce the digestive viscosity, or in other words, they create about problems in the digestive tract. The chicks will not be able to easily digest the feed. So be aware of that if you choose wheat as your main ingredient. Another item to take note of is that chickens that are fed wheat, they usually have wet litter, and sometimes they develop enteritis. If you don't have wheat in your area or you don't have maize, you can as well consider sorghum. Sorghum is another good source of energy and protein, and its energy content can be compared to maize. So you can use that as well, but you have to be very careful, because sorghum contains tannins. Now, these are polyphenols that combine with protein, and they reduce the growth and the digestibility of feed. As a result, there won't be a higher feed intake as you might want uh, the case to be in your farming. So after choosing either of these three main ingredients, which is either maize or wheat or sorghum, you choose one. The other ingredients that you need is wheat bran or maize bran. Now, of these, you only choose one. Don't put both, okay? Let's say, for instance, you choose maize bran. Maize bran is simply uh, the outer covers of corn, okay? Now, these have insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. They are very important because insoluble fibers they reduce the amount of cholesterol in the body, whereby the soluble fibers are important for digestibility, and also they have a higher content of energy as well as protein. So you choose either of these. After wheat bran or maize bran, the other important ingredient that you need to choose is a plant protein, and in this case, you might consider soybean. Soybean can be a very good source of protein and energy, except you have to make sure that the soybean is heat treated or roasted. This is because soybean contains trypsin binders, which reduce digestibility. So if it is heated or it is roasted, it will improve the digestibility. Feeding also raw soybean can lead to problems of the digestive tract, and these might be lesions in the ventriculus. After soybean meal, the other next ingredient that you will need for your feed formulation is a vegetable oil. You might consider using sunflower cake or cottonseed meal. This can be used in place of soybean. But the biggest disadvantage of using cottonseed meal is that it contains what is known as gossypol. Gossypol is simply a yellow polyphenolic pigment that causes yolk pigmentation. As such, it shouldn't be used uh, in laying hens or breeders. The next ingredient that you need is either meat or bone meal. After meat or bone meal, you need fish meal. Although in current feed formulations, fish meal is rarely used, but if it is what is readily available to you, so why not use it? Okay. Although I have to tell you about the potential problems that usually arise when you use fish meal. First of all, fish meal usually adds a tint to your eggs and meat. They'll be smelling. If you open a dead chick, you find that the gizzard has erosion. So it causes gizzard erosion in chicks. This scent or smell is usually related to the trimethylamine content of the fish. This is usually as a result of poor processing of fish. If the fish is poorly processed or poorly stored. After fish meal, the next important ingredient that you need is calcium and phosphorus. These are important in eggshell formation, muscle function, as well as nerve function. In broilers, it is very important for bone formation, for the strength of the bones, okay, because broilers usually gain weight very quickly. So they need strong bones to be able to stand, okay? If there isn't enough calcium in the feed, in the broiler feed, you'll find that the broilers are very weak. They will be unable to stand that much weight, okay? And you see usually in growing chicks there will be rickets. If it's laying hens, you find that the eggshell formation will reduce, and if it's formed, of course it's going to be very weak. This will be a deficiency of calcium and phosphorus. Now, what are the sources of calcium? Okay, so you can use limestone as your source of calcium. You can also use oyster shell if it's readily available to you as a source of calcium. You can also use calcium phosphates. As the name suggests, this is going to be a source of both calcium and phosphorus. After calcium and phosphorus, you need plain salt. You can use either plain salt or iodized salt. If you don't have these, you can use sodium bicarbonate, okay, or simply baking soda. Now, one important thing to note here is if you decide to use sodium bicarbonate instead of salt, you find that the chickens will take less water because uh, salt normally makes the chicks makes the chickens to take enough water. Okay, it makes them thirsty, so they take more water. All right. Sodium bicarbonate or baking soda does the opposite. There will be reduced intake of water if you use sodium bicarbonate. But that is not what I would do if I were you, because I want my chicks to take more water. So I would simply go for plain salt. Okay, so next you need synthetic amino acids. There are so many types of these amino acids, but the most important ones in poultry feed formulation is uh, an amino acid called lysine and methionine. These are very important. We are not going to go into the physiological importances of these, but you just have to know that these are very important, and you cannot really do a very good poultry feed without lysine and methionine. So take note of that. You need lysine and methionine. The other ingredient that you need are feed additives. The first feed additive that you need are anticoccidials, because coccidiosis is a very common disease in poultry and it causes high mortality. So you will need it to prevent its negative consequences. You can use either amprolium or dicoquinate. Okay, the other feed additive that you need are toxin binders. Okay, these are important because they neutralize and immobilize the chemicals, mycotoxins that are usually found in other ingredients like maize. Okay, for example, aflatoxins are the common mycotoxins that are found in maize. So you will need toxin binders. Apart from that, you also need mineral and vitamin premixes. Okay, so you need fat soluble vitamins as well as water soluble vitamins. All right, so those are the ingredients that you need.